Well, welcome to BIB 222 Dual Enrollment Online. I'm very excited about what we're going to do today, and let's dive right in. We're going to look at Joshua and Jesus. This is video 6 of the Dual Enrollment / online. And what I've been presenting is that God has hidden a story of Jesus in the Old Testament, that it's a macro typology, it's a meta-narrative, Christocentric, plot symmetrical, elegant, artistic, this work of art pointing to Jesus. And we're going to look at that in terms of Joshua. And there are a number of pairs in the Bible: Moses, Joshua, and you could add to this, I'm sure, Elijah, Elisha, John the Baptist, Jesus. And when you start putting these stories together, you realize, well, John the Baptist is dressed like Elijah. He's got a camel vestment, hair, and leather belt around his waist. Moses and Elijah both leave this earth, the same place. Elijah taken to heaven, Moses dying, not going into the promised land. And then the one who takes people in is Joshua. So Moses, the lawgiver, can't get you into the land till this really cool guy, Joshua, can bring you in. Now, this is the whole meta-narrative of freedom from slavery. You have God's law revealed to you, and then you're going into the land flowing with milk and honey, kind of restoration of the Garden of Eden. Now, where all this becomes very artistic and very just elegant is with this idea of Jesus. So here we have, she will bear you a son, and you shall call his name Jesus, for he will save his people from their sins. So that's why he will be called Jesus. If we looked at the English text and just, came to the word Jesus and, did a search, show me the first place that word appears, well, the first place it appears would be Matthew 1:1, the book of the genealogy of Jesus Christ. And so here's the word, Jesus Christ. In Greek, you add little bits to the end to get of Jesus or to Jesus. But this is the word Jesus, Jesus. Now, that's if I do it in English. If I do that same search and say, show me all the places in the Greek Bible where that appears, well, the first place that would come up would be Exodus 7:9. Moses said to Jesus, and you can see that this word Jesus is the word Joshua. In fact, it's translating the word Yehashua. Jesus is the closest they could render it in Greek, but the word Jesus and the word Joshua are exactly the same word. They aren't similar, they aren't kind of like, they're exactly the same word. The word Jesus and the word Joshua in Greek are the same word. Jesus is Joshua, is the new Joshua. So how do we understand the story? Well, we've talked before about how sin drives people out of their inheritance. Adam and Eve are kicked out because their sin. They're clothed by God first, and we're told to put on the Lord Jesus Christ, same word. And the goal is for people to be saved from their sins and changed so that they can live with God in heavenly Jerusalem. But how does that happen in the story? As we read through the Old Testament, what's the thing that's going to do it? Well, the thing is the new covenant. I'll take you from the nations. I will gather you from all the countries. I'll bring you to your own Adamah, your own land. I will sprinkle clean water on you, just as Moses sprinkled bloody water, and that put them under the Mosaic covenant. God, as priest, says, I will sprinkle clean water on you. You'll be clean from all your uncleannesses, from all your idols. I'll cleanse you. I'll give you a new heart, new spirit I will put within you. I will remove your heart of stone from your flesh, give you a heart of flesh. I will put my spirit within you. God gave the law 50 days after Passover. God is giving the Spirit to the church 50 days after Jesus rose from the dead. There's a connection there of God writing the law on our hearts. You will dwell in the land. I'm going to bring you back. You're going to dwell in that land. The land I gave your forefathers, you will be my people and I will be your God. I will deliver you from all your uncleannesses. I will summon the grain. All this is Eden-like language and the restoration of Eden. So you have this idea of, in the story, you're trying to get back to the Holy of Holies of God's presence. And so the conquest is kind of, well, let's drive all the sinners out. Let's go in this land flowing with milk and honey, and all the people who won't submit, get rid of them. Well, the problem with that, it's commanded by God. The Lord your God brings you into the land you are entering to take possession of it, clears away many nations, Hittites, Girgashites, Amorites, Canaanites, Perizzites. God says, when the Lord gives it over to you and you defeat them, you must devote them to complete destruction. Make no covenant, show them no mercy. And you start thinking, well, how as Christians do we understand the Old Testament with this, driving the Canaanites out? Well, it's where the story becomes incredibly beautiful. There's a connection between the Garden of Eden and the Promised Land. The picture of the conquest is a picture of the taking of the Promised Land, where people who are holy can live with God. But the problem comes when you start saying, okay, there's a connection between the exile of Adam and Eve from Eden and the conquest of Canaan. And the connections are obvious. The four rivers of Eden are the border rivers of the Promised Land. There are cherubs in the temple. There were cherubs in Eden. There was the immediate earthly presence of God. There's gold, bdellium, and onyx in the temple. There's exclusion from the Holy of Holies and exclusion from Eden for sinners. And we've seen there's a connection between Eden and New Jerusalem. So, and we see it here, the angel showed me the river of the water of life. On either side, the tree of life. The only place in the Bible where the tree of life is in Eden and in New Jerusalem. So the idea is, well, people spiritually died, but ultimately you're going to have this new cosmic power couple. They're going to love each other and they're going to be holy so they can live with God. So, in other words, they're going to get back to the Garden of Eden. Well, if there's a connection between the exile of Adam and Eve and a conquest of Canaan, and so you've got this whole idea, the going back into Eden. Well, if that's the case, there's a massive problem because Judah had intermarried with a Canaanite woman. And so the Jewish people are half Canaanite. It isn't the sinners, out there who are somehow the problem. It's like, it's us. We've got the Spirit, and God says, go drive the Canaanites out. And well, we're Canaanites. We're half Canaanites. So what do we do? How do we understand this? Well, that's where the beauty of this story comes in, because even though you do have this intermarriage and God is saying, show them no mercy, the Bible is very honest that there are problems with the people. They're disobedient. Here, Judah sees his daughter-in-law, thinks she's a prostitute, ends up sleeping with her. This is a vile thing he does, according to Leviticus 18. You're not to do that. Israel is just as wicked as Canaanites. If you read Israel, Sodom and Gomorrah stories in Judges 19 through 21, and it's much worse than the Sodom and Gomorrah story in Genesis 18 and 19. Judah has massive sin with Tamar. You have the whole fertility cult, Baal, Asher worship, sacrificing to Moloch. You even have male cult prostitutes inside the temple of God there at the end. And so, when you come to the end of the Bible, God says, I'm going to send you the prophet Elijah before the great and terrible day of the Lord, and he will turn the hearts of the fathers to their children and the hearts of the children to their fathers, lest I come and strike the land with a decree of utter destruction. And in Hebrew, that's the word cherem. This is exactly what Deuteronomy 7 is talking about, drive the wicked people out. And here, by the end of the Old Testament, it's not those people out there, it's Israel itself. So, and here's the passage when this happens. It says, you will devote them to utter destruction. It's exactly the same word. So how do we understand this Canaanite curse and Joshua going in and cleansing the land? Well, we understand it as Jesus. Jesus is the true Joshua, and he's making salvific space. He's parting the abyss. He's making a place where we can live. And just think about this. If a man committed a crime punishable by death and he's put to death, you'll hang him on a tree, and his body will not remain all night on the tree, but you'll bury him the same day, for the hangman is cursed by God. And of course, in Joshua 8, it says they hanged the king of Ai on a tree until evening. At sunset, Joshua commanded, and they took his body down from the tree and threw it in the entrance of the gate of the city and raised over a great heap of stones, which stand to this day. And one chapter away, when the 5 Canaanite kings come, they had hidden themselves in a cave, and it says they hanged them on 5 trees and until evening. But at the time of the going down of the sun, Joshua commanded and took them down from the trees and threw them into the cave where they had hidden themselves. They set large stones against the mouth of the cave, which remain to this day. Now, here's where the story becomes so incredibly beautiful, because Jesus is the new Joshua, and we all have spiritual Canaanites in our hearts. So what does Jesus do? Well, he becomes one with our flesh, and he dies cursed on a tree, and he's put in a cave, and a large stone's put over its mouth. And that's why when Jesus comes to a Canaanite woman, she's not going to be under the curse, because when she believes, he forgives her, and he brings salvation to her and her family. And the reason is because Christ became a curse for us. He took that curse, and he did it in a way where he's going to fix our heart and make us just men and women, having been made perfect, having been fixed of this pollution that we inherited in Adam. The Old Testament says, "O Lord, if you should mark iniquities, who, O Lord, could stand?" And that's true. No one could stand, because we're all guilty before God. And so we say with David, when he was confronted with his sin, Bathsheba, and killing Uriah the Hittite, he pleads, "Create in me a clean heart, O God, renew a right spirit." This is exactly what later Ezekiel will pick up and describe as the new covenant. God creating this clean heart, God renewing the spirit, God causing to walk in his ways. The Bible says he made him who knew no sin to be sin on our behalf so that we might become the righteousness of God in him. Jesus is the guarantor of the new covenant. He died to see that his benefit would be given to all who come to him by faith. The promise is for total transformation from all your filthinesses and from all your idols. And when he does that, the result is that we can live with God in restored Eden forever. So what I suggest you do, you work through the homework, talk about it with your teacher and among yourselves, and this idea of Jesus as the new Joshua. How is he like Joshua in the Old Testament? How is he contrast to Joshua? How is he a better Joshua? Moses couldn't get the people in the land. This really cool guy named Jesus was able to get the people into the land flowing with milk and honey. Bat that idea around and see if it doesn't begin to explain some of the details of the story. Trust it will bless you as much as it has blessed me, and I look forward to talking to you next time. See you then.